Rather interesting play in Bioc yesterday. One that I definitely want to go over because I definitely think it's one of those 10 times a year type plays where this can really make a difference in your account. So I'm going to go over why I was really excited to trade Bioc and what it means for future prospects on similar charts like this. So first off, we're going to go through what Bioc has been doing for the past year because that's really important to this whole dynamic. So first things first, Bioc had a reverse split way back in I think it was July, and had this really nice move from the low threes all the way up to the 12s on very light volume. So the first question that we should be asking ourselves is if it could run from 3 to 12 on light volume, why on hundreds of millions of shares traded in 2 days can it only run 100%? And a lot of that's going to have to do with the share structure that currently exists and what they've been doing for the past year. So what we're going to do is we're going to quickly look at the 10Q of Bioc from back then in July 2018, when it had that initial run. So this is August, and that'll do us just as good of a justice. And what we're going to do in this August is we're going to look at the shares outstanding, which is right here. As of August 2018, there were 2 million shares outstanding of common stock. So that's relatively a low float, low amount of shares outstanding. Now, that was August 2018. Let's fast forward to May 14th, 2019. What has Bioc been doing for the past year? Number of shares outstanding are 18 million. So what that tells me is for the past year, Bioc has been a dilutive machine. And into every spike, they've been diluting their shares outstanding, which makes them a very interesting short sale culprit for me. I love stocks that are diluting. It really tips the scale into the short side's favor. It's another added edge that you can add to, into your strategy base. So that was the first thing I noticed. Back then in July, there were 2 million shares outstanding, and now there are 18 million shares outstanding. The other thing I really liked about this chart and why I was super interested in shorting it is because of how the daily is set up, where clearly you have this, first spike and then this kind of second spike down here. And what that really does is it creates a lot of bag holders. Again, another side of supply that's really not going to help the stock go very far. When you can add dilution and bag holders into a short setup, it really, if there's one buyer for every 3 sellers, the sellers are eventually going to win, and they're not just going to win by a margin. They're going to win by a landfall. And that's kind of what happened on Bioc, where, once the weakness was shown and we started putting in those lower highs to high of day, that low of day crap became very violent because there were way more sellers than buyers up in the $1.70 area. And this is no longer that low float that should scare the crap out of you. This is relatively a bigger float. This is 18 million shares outstanding. It's going to take a hell of a lot for it to go really crazy. I mean, that was probably one of the more actively traded stocks I've seen in a while, and it still only ran 100%. We've seen 500,000, 10,000% runners. Those are usually the ones that are untradeable. It's these that are, very higher shares outstanding and more liquid. The 100 million shares traded in 2 days makes it a very easy chart to kind of get a feel for and read. You're not going to have these very violent moves, especially if the chart is covered in absolute disaster. So the reason I'm talking about Bioc and why it's really interesting is because, again, this play doesn't come very often, but you also have to understand the underlying facts of dilution and a nasty daily chart, and then understand how to play the price action. Understand that this first spike puts in a bunch of resistance for the day, and then it hard cracks, and then we have a lower high. It's right out of trading the tickers. And I'm sure Grittani banked on this because this is a very valid risk-reward play. It's shorting into resistance, which is from this hodgepodge of a mess. It's a hard crack. It's a lower high. It's VWAP stuffs, and then you have that crack through the sideways price action, and then you go red on the day. And you have that first red day price action. And this gets super ugly. It then turns into an overextended gap down type of setups and continues down. But again, why are we talking about Bioc? Because we have to be prepared to nail the next one. I want to be prepared to nail the next one. I saw this in real time, and I know that this is one of the best setups I could have seen the day before. And I was so prepared to nail it on this day that I want to find another one. But I know that they're not going to come every day. I just need to be prepared. So the next one I want to go over is NVCN. NVCN is spiking today, just a couple days later. And it's trading some massive volume already, just to start the day. I don't know what's going to end up happening with this stock. I hope it does extend itself. I hope it does do a Bioc. Right now, it's not really anywhere I want it to be yet. But what I am going to do now, and before it gets to where I want it to be, is I'm going to go over the dilution. I'm going to make sure there is dilution, which you can quite obviously see from this chart that there is dilution. But I'm going to look into it, see what's still available, and see if we can have a Bioc type play, whether I have to short an overextended gap down and be patient, or short it into a resistance and wait for the resistance to be put in on the daily. But the first thing I'm going to do before it even gets to where I want to short it is I'm going to go through the process. So, one thing I did want to mention on Bioc is, these Form 424B3s, these Form 424B5s, B4s, these are all financing filings. And contained in these financing filings, I don't have to really go through them. We're going to go through NVCN in a sec. But these filings say that there were warrants at $1.20, $1.30-ish, somewhere in there. And so, again, they had been actively diluting for the past year and still are actively diluting because these warrants were still outstanding. And so I knew that the further off $1.20, $1.30 level we were, the more that these warrant holders would responsibly start converting their warrants for profits. I'm sure that they made out with a ton of money into that $2 area. A huge reason why probably 60 million shares couldn't push it much higher is because there were millions and millions shares being converted from much lower prices. Again, added selling pressure to the demand. The demand can't push it much higher. That's a situation that I like, but it's not random. So let's go into NVCN. Now, NVCN has been a situation for over a year now where they had a really nasty financing operation going on. And then they did a reverse split, but this is what the year-long chart looks like, or year and a half. And this is ugly. But the most recent reverse split is kind of where I'm most focused, and that was down here. And since then, we faded off considerably so as well. This is one of those really nasty financing situations where I know that this stock has been diluting, so we already have that aspect of the trade. We could potentially have some resistance areas to play off of just looking at this chart in the massive volume days. But again, I got to look through the dilution. It's not quite extended just yet. It's still the first green day. So let's see what's actually going on, and let's see if dilution is at prices that are below current market prices, because that's what's important. If the stock is at 47 cents and the warrants are at $1, then they're not going to make a difference because the warrant holders aren't selling for a loss. But if the warrants are at 47 cents and the stock is at $1, that's a different situation because now those warrant holders are up 100%. So let's go through the disclosures. And what I'm going to do, since this is a foreign ticker, is I'm going to go to bamsec.com, which is just another way to look up filings. And I just think that they have what I like about them is they have a brief description of what the filing is. And that really helps me for F-letter tickers because sometimes they can be quite confusing on the financings or not just give you the straight answer that you're looking for. So for this foreign issuer, I'm going to go through the 20F because this financing deal has been around for a while. And I'm going to just check up on the details. So I go to the 20F, and this is what I generally type in. I type in offering. People always ask me how I find out this information. Use common sense. Come on. Type in offering. Type in convertible. Type in keywords. You know what a keyword is. You know what an offering is. Type in offering. So then I just start clicking enter and looking for something that has to do with shares. And this is the first section we see that has to do with shares. I don't know if it's the section I want to show you guys because I've gone through this already, and this looks like the section. So this is the nasty financing deal, November 17th, 2017, where they start talking about all the Series A's that they did and the Series B, Series C, and Series E. There's a bunch of these convertible warrants that they gave to the insiders about a year and a half ago. Now, the important thing that I saw, which doesn't make me a tad nervous to short the stock, but definitely makes me not want to short it on day one, was this sentence right here. And this was very, very important to me. As of March 19, 2019, all of the warrants issued pursuant to the 2017 financings have been exercised or canceled. So everything in this hodgepodge of wordage is done. So it's not that same toxically dilutive stock that it once was, but it's still a dilutive stock with tons of bag holders. So it's definitely something I want to short if given the right opportunity, because it's one of those really crappy stocks. It's got a really big share outstanding. Um, and then I dug it a bit deeper, and it turns out that there are, this is kind of important. So there's 61 million shares outstanding. Um, but I kept looking. You know, that was the uh, 2017 offering. There is another offering in here, and I'm gonna look for it real quick. We'll see if I can find it. So it looks like, hang on, that could be it. And what I'm looking at right now is, you know, they completed an offering as of February 28th. So a year later for 11 million common shares at a price of 45 cents per share. So right now, since the stock is at 80 cents, those warrants are in the money, and that dilution can kick in at any time they want. It takes like 10 minutes for a company to kind of unwind 10 million shares of dilution, or 20 minutes to unwind like a million shares of dilution. So 10 million can really have an effect, especially if it's a large amount of dilution relative to the float. That's not exactly the sentence I wanted to show you guys. So sometimes you do have to take your time with these, and especially in the beginning, you can get faster at it. Um, the more you practice. So yeah, so they had this like senior convertible note as part of the 2017 financing. They gave some notes to the insiders, and these notes are actually still outstanding. It says as of March 19th, 2019, there was $20 million of aggregate principal amount of the notes had been converted for 19 million shares, and 10 million had still remained outstanding. So, and these notes, without actually being able to show you because it's not right here, these notes have an exercise price of 45 cents. So this is the kind of dilution that I make assumptions on. You know, I'm not some finance head that knows so much about these filings and take my word for gospel. I have no idea if I'm right or wrong in the moment. But the fact that I can pinpoint some amount of dilution, the fact that it's just in the filings, and I can use that as an assumption to base a trade. If I know a stock has been diluting and I assume there's active dilution from the best of my ability reading through the filings, then I'm interested. And whether I'm right or wrong, the price action will eventually tell me whether I take a loss or a gain. But generally, just knowing about the dilution is enough to, you know, tip your hat that this is not a stock you should long, or this is maybe one you should short. Dilution is huge. And so, again, we have dilution at 45 cents. We have a dilutive stock that's been diluting for years. We already have 30 million shares traded on the day, and it's 45 minutes into market open. So it's having a crazy volume day. And again, it's nowhere near where I want to short it just yet, but I'm actively watching this for a Bioc type situation where I know that once we put in that resistance and we start like showing weak price action, that I either want to go after a gap down day or a short into resistance type play. And this is what I'm going to be eager to play because of the liquidity, because of the dilution, because of the behind the scene factors. So that's Bioc. That's potentially NVCN. Hopefully NVCN turns out to be something great. If not, it's no big deal. But this is the process I go through for most stocks. And this is how I'm going to find the next Bioc type situation, just like I found it this time.